what you think a customer should be getting from an SEO campaign. Where's the real value come from SEO?
Traffic for the sake of traffic is not good traffic when we think of SEO. I think it's conversion of the right traffic that's going to lead to a purchasing decision or a service-oriented decision where they're like, yes, I do want to work with this. This is exactly what I was looking for.
I think what they should be looking at, and if they're call tracking or some kind of analytics to help prove that that they're building that exposure, that should give you a pretty easy ROI.
Yeah, I would echo all of that and just add that while this site, for example, is very user-friendly, you're able to see the services, to book an appointment, all the things, but also making sure that it's LLM friendly or search engine friendly as well.
All right, welcome to the first episode of SEO, You're Paying For It. Excited to record this with the three guests that have joined us. I'm going to give them each a chance to introduce themselves. We have been given permission by a physical therapist to evaluate her website on today's podcast. So I've shared that website with the three guests, and we're going to spend some time looking into what they've been getting and seeing where there are opportunities for them to improve their current state of SEO. So starting with Adam, because you're in the top left of my screen here, please give us a quick introduction to yourself and your background.
Hello, my name is Adam Allen. I am the CEO, founder of Lease My Marketing, a digital marketing agency. Come with 20 plus years of agency and client side work. And so I'm happy to be here.
We're excited to have you, Adam. I appreciate that. I appreciate even you spent some time looking at my wife's website too. I appreciated that insight. I think Morgan as well. Zach, if you please tell us a little bit about your background. Thank you for joining us.
I'm the CEO and founder of Rank Realm, and I come from a background of around 15 plus years of technical SEO in the e-commerce space, typically.
And after my first conversation with Zach, he mentioned that he's working on websites with thousands of pages. So one with under 50 might be a fun transition for you, a little bit easier to digest potentially. Thanks for joining us, Zach. And Morgan, last but not least, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in SEO.
Yeah, I'm Morgan. I work for Red Egg Marketing as the AI and SEO manager. I have almost 10 years experience in SEO and marketing, and happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to start with first impressions here. So let me share my screen and pull open the website. I've given you each a chance to take a look at it. So you probably want to jump right into some of the things that you've seen, maybe some of the opportunities. But before we jump into the opportunities, I want to share things that you feel like we were doing right. So let me get another chance at trying to open this up. All right. And feel free to navigate me as you wish here. But what were your first impressions of this website?
First and foremost, the main impression that I got immediately, and this was just thinking with local SEO in mind, was that they did place their address and contact information right at the top of the page. So the moment someone came to the site, they knew exactly how to get in contact with them. They knew, what area they are in. At a usability standpoint, when we think about something that's brick and mortar, I think that's incredibly useful to think of. So I do believe that is something that they're doing right out the gate, especially with the call to actions, the buttons, the book an appointment, not only in the header, but right prominently in front of their face. And I did check this on mobile too. It's the very same cadence on mobile, which is another good indicator that they're doing something right there, especially where, and I'm guilty of this myself when I'm looking up, physical therapy or doctor appointments or dentist or whatever it is. I'm looking immediately for how far away are they from me and how easy is it to book an appointment. So that was the first thing that stuck out to me.
I was just going to agree that the address being right there at the top was good. And I also noticed that on the homepage, the SEOs in charge of this did go after some local SEO with the New York Rivers town being right there in the header. So right off the bat, I thought that was good. And I like that they have video on the homepage and some proof of life throughout the site. I thought that was really good with the actual photos of their studio and them working with clients. So that was my first impression.
I really like the video too, actually. So I thought, I was like, wow, they've spent some time, or at least had someone that really knows what's going on, post some videos for them on the website. They were clean and in high quality.
I agree. First impression, very polished look, right? Professional. I think that the color palette, appeals to the broad, spectrum of audiences. that they serve. Like Zach mentioned, real clear, contact information, both on the homepage and in the super header, as well. Actually, my first impression, when I got it, I looked on mobile, and this slide right here was actually a little cut off, but otherwise, it presents really well, gives a very good understanding of what they do, So I always think a website, should very clearly communicate that they're at the right place. They can solve their problem, make it easy to connect with them, and build trust.
So the first impressions were there's nothing blaring to any of you. The overall build was good.
Yeah.
One thing I look at typically is if something's going to load quickly on the first pass, right? It's like, is this also an optimized site in the sense of how fast it loads? And all of the imagery, the video, everything clearly loads very quickly. And I think that was a good indicator as well.
So the real question for you guys is that this customer, this client, or this owner has been paying for SEO. And it's a question of, like, are they paying for SEO and getting what they're paying for, or are we potentially underwhelmed by the quality of the SEO on the website? We're not going to try to make this a bash session. We don't know who these other agencies were that are working on it. So we're not being critical of any individual specifically, but we do want to be honest about the opportunity for this client from their SEO to have improved, or to honestly set the expectation correctly for what a client should expect from their agency. So before we dive into whether you loved or disliked anything on their current SEO, help me understand first what you think a customer should be getting from an SEO campaign. Where's the real value come from SEO? Help me understand that.
I can say that it kind of depends on what your goal is, and what type of SEO agency that you're hiring, and what you want to accomplish. With a local company, we always focus on Google Business Profile rankings, as well as organic localized rankings as well, right? So traffic they're in New York. Traffic from California isn't really going to do them a lot of good, right? So are they building local traffic and getting local exposure? That's I think what they should be looking at, and if they have a call tracking or some kind of analytics to help prove that that they're building that exposure, that should give you a pretty easy ROI.
And I kind of echo what Adam's saying there in a different regard, but same is that traffic for the sake of traffic is not good traffic when we think of SEO. I think it's conversion of the right traffic that's going to lead to a purchasing decision or a service oriented decision where they're like, yes, I do want to work with this. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is in my area, things of that nature. And it really comes down to making sure that things like your business listings are optimized, that your local listings, your local SEO across the site is optimized, that you're targeting the right terms for conversion when it comes down to it, and that your website's technically sound. So if we're thinking about like what an SEO agency should be doing correctly here, it would be always making sure that things are always technically addressed well, that, from indexation to internal linking, all those little small things in between, that we're utilizing and targeting the right content that gets the right users. And that content would include localized information to make sure that those right users are also in the right area.
Morgan?
Yeah, I would echo all of that and just add that while like this site, for example, is very user friendly, like you're able to see the services, to book an appointment, all the things, but also making sure that it's like LLM friendly or search engine friendly as well, which I'm sure we'll get into later on, but making sure that you're balancing both of those things and everything that both Zach and Adam said.
I love it. We often have agencies on and they're discussing like the priorities on an SEO campaign. I feel like the first thing that comes up as a priority for pretty much every SEO agency is make sure your website is technically sound. So I want to just dive into this and give you guys a chance to just discuss what you saw from your first impressions of the technical aspect of SEO on this website.
Yeah, I'll go first, I guess. The first thing I looked at, I was like, I kind of broke it down for myself into like 3 silos of like technical, content, and then like structural. So I looked at the schema because with this new Google update, everyone's talking about it. I heard at Brighton SEO in UK, all these things. So I was like, let's take a look. And I did see that the company who did this schema markup on the website added it, but didn't always do it correctly. And there was sometimes like manual schema and then Yoast SEO schema kind of fighting. So I see that a lot sometimes. And so then Google doesn't use it at all, or, the LLMs don't see it at all. And that's the whole reason we're doing it. So that'd be one thing that I noticed.
I want to pause you there before you get into your other two, because I do think that's worth discussing.
Totally.
There's layers to this SEO, right? That they've had multiple SEO companies help them in the past. So this is a problem that people will run into that have stacked SEOs on top of each other, or a web developer that was doing both. Tell me where you see this issue of like multiple schemas having been caused. Like what would cause this for someone that has this issue on their site?
Yeah, I noticed it on the FAQ page. So they had Yoast automatically for an FAQ page will add it, but they actually didn't add what's called main entity data, which is basically like they're doing the work for the FAQs, but they're not getting rewarded for it in the eyes of Google. And then also on the homepage, great opportunity to add it for the video. They didn't add video object schema, which is like such an easy low-hanging fruit. They'll show up on the SERPs, as a video. So that would be one instance. And then the conflicting was, I think they had on the About page, I took a note here somewhere, but anyways, on the About page, I think they had like listed as local business, but they also had like manually gone in and listed themselves as like a medical business. I think the schema is called medical business schema. Yeah. And so Google's like, well, which one are you? Are you local or are you medical? I would go medical if I was them, but that's just me.
Okay, Zach and Adam, please, jump in here because I see you shaking your heads in agreement on a lot of this.
Yeah, same thing with the schema. Everything that she saw, I saw on the schema side. The one thing I was going to add too on the homepage is that there's actually additional FAQs that are farther down the page on the homepage too that aren't wrapped in FAQ schema currently. So that's like another opportunity to show up just in a couple extra areas within search. Is if, even that little area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that too.
Exactly. Not currently wrapped in schema. Yeah, the video schema was missing. And really, I think that, to Morgan's point earlier, LLMs and really being able to understand that information, it's not sure they can scrape our website and our content and all that fun stuff. But the more that we add structure to that information, the easier it is for them to read it and potentially cite it as a result later down the line. So, making sure that there's no conflicts there where they're coming across and saying Yoast says one thing, but maybe my website says another is important to that regard, but also having it in all the areas that makes sense.
I was curious if the Yoast issue is more of like a web developer that's also trying to do SEO that is set up a plugin inside of WordPress that's now clashing with the SEO work of the agency.
Yeah, that's highly possible too, right? It's like Yoast is for the most part, like a free plugin, and you want to do, maybe it's like we want to do SEO for one area, we want it for the like extra content tools or whatever, so we install Yoast for that, but it does install kind of all aspects of it. It's going to do, sitemap management, it's going to do schema, things of that nature, and then you have an agency maybe coming in and saying, yeah, we need to implement this, and going with a different route without, disabling it in one area or the other. It's highly likely.
Yeah.
And Adam, I'll give you a chance here to, sorry, Adam, I want you to talk about schema, but I'll also say, lead us on to the next section that you noticed as well.
Yeah. So I say, my experience with Yoast is, most people apply it, not really understanding, how to fully, implement or optimize it. So they think they're applying, this widget, they call it SEO, and they just add it to the site, and oftentimes, just hit all the, yes, the optimize, buttons. But don't actually know how to correctly implement it. And in this case, like Morgan pointed out, it ends up, kind of, backfiring a little bit. Technical SEO is one of my more favorite parts of SEO because it's very easy to at least define what's going on and then fix those things. We always try to maintain over a 90%. Theirs is I think around 87%. I saw on SEMrush. I think they pointed out everything great from a schema standpoint. Certainly AI is also leveraging that as well. But there's some low hanging fruit that they could definitely take action on.
So maybe I'll jump down to Morgan too. Morgan, you said there were three sections that you noticed particularly. Schema was the first of the three. What was the second?
Yeah. Well, I said technical, but I just jumped right into Schema because I saw that and was excited to share. But I also did the site audit in SEMrush like Adam did, and I saw that, overall everything looked good, but there are some things, just like little things like duplicate metadata or like no metadata, underscores in URLs, like small things that like don't seem like a huge thing, but do add up. And why not fix them? It's like such low hanging fruit, such an easy opportunity to, better your site health. And, but the next silo or like area I was going to talk about was either content or like structural, like this website itself.
Well, let's throw it into the structure of the site itself, because I do think that that's something that you maybe build it at first and then you kind of forget that might be important for just the hierarchy of content and how it's viewed. So between the three of you, just give me some insights on what you felt about the structure of the site itself.
Yeah. First thing right off the bat is the services page. I would love the services page to have all the services listed there and link to each of them. It's just have a section, have a little interlinking opportunity there, like a hub and spoke structure type of thing. And I changed the URLs. For instance, I think one of them is like men's pelvic health, like have it be live here, link to the new page or the old page, whatever, but with a new URL, which would be like services, / men's pelvic health. Because then they're all kind of siloed together. I love doing this, especially this is a perfect opportunity where like these are the services they offer. It's pretty like black and white there. So yeah, that would be one opportunity.
Why would we want that? Why is that important? It feels like I have the page. Why would I actually need to make it all connect like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's for one, it's a nice user experience, right? If someone just clicks on our services, they're scrolling around just to see kind of what is offered. Instead of having to scroll back up to the top to then kind of filter through menus, it is front and center for a conversion to happen to a click to a deeper landing page, right? So at a usability standpoint, it's just easier workflow, but also at a crawlability standpoint, if Google's crawling through content or AI is crawling through content and they come across the internal link, it's just going to help with association of, the keyword clusters around them with the internal linking, but also getting to deeper landing pages more efficiently, not relying on just, say, the header navigation or sitemaps to find those pager discovers of them directly.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd also probably, minimize, the number of global navigational, header items, on there. FAQs, maybe should be there, but like blog and resources and some other things, I think you could, live in a different position on the homepage. I also like to put the services right on the homepage, because a lot of times, people will just, scroll down, really quick. And so having a quick, bulleted list of the services on the homepage, that link down, further, into a services page, and then the individual service, itself, I think it's also really helpful. And then we get, internal linking up and down, the different, verticals, from a like pillar content standpoint.
I'm curious. My experience already, when you guys talked about the user experience, I was trying to click on services and I have some dead clicks right away because I was like, well, why isn't it opening?
I hate that.
And so I had to go down to services to find out that this is more of like a what to expect than an actual service page.
This actually got me thinking just now too, but one thing that those services pages might be missing is like breadcrumb structure. So having those breadcrumb navigational links maybe below that Our Services banner. If you're clicking on deeper to like men's pelvic health or orthopedic and pelvic floor therapy, either one, right? We have some breadcrumb structure that kind of navigates the user where they they were deeper into the solutions, but that also actually includes, additional internal linking structure for Google and other crawlers to follow just from structured data usage.
And I actually am not super familiar with like the usability of breadcrumbs. Like, is that where we have like the arrows that are typically showing you what pages you've traveled and then you can backtrack to those?
Yeah, exactly. And those are all typically crawlable and easy navigatable through, even a user experience standpoint to say, I want to go back a page. It's right in front of me quickly. I don't have to go back to the top of the website to go back to maybe see all of the services at a glance. I can just kind of go back to the first piece of that breadcrumb.
Get frustrated and just leave the website because you don't want to try to figure out how you got to where you were, and an easy backtrack, I guess. Huh? What else did you guys notice from like the structure of the site itself? I'm asking you to be web developers still, but we're going to dive into the SEO soon.
Okay, I'll do one more. So I did notice that a lot of the website is built on Elementor. And Elementor is a double-edged sword in my past experience, where it can be a very good tool for quickly developing a website and prototyping it into a place where it's visually working. It's got a great user experience. It can be a negative, and I'm not saying that this is actually being used negatively. I think the entire website is actually structured very well for the most part. But depending on the settings and how it's used, it can be a negative. One thing I did notice is, because it's Elementor, it's kind of a JavaScript enabled service. And if you disable JavaScript in console to see like how things are rendered, there are certain areas of the site where things just don't become functional anymore. I did see that the content still is rendered in the DOM. A good example, I guess, is on the about pages where I was looking, or is it contact or about? Yeah, about is actually on the about page. Under the Our Team section.
Loading issue more than that. Okay, there we go.
No worries there. Under the Our Team section, there's this hover state that happens when you go over each person here, each therapist and the owner. And if you disable JavaScript, that no longer functions, which is fine. Like Google renders JavaScript, and maybe not on first pass, but on a second pass, that kind of thing. And the content itself is still pre-rendered in the HTML, so Google's likely still reading it. But I think this is where, and I'm thinking about, YM, ML, your money, your life, style pages. We have all of these descriptions or these biographies of the people who work here. But when we look at the structured data of itself as well, and I'm going to kind of go back to that for just a quick second, it's not explicitly clear that these people are listed within the organizational structured data, that they're a part of the team. There's opportunity there, just on the structured data standpoint, but also on the authority level standpoint. It might make more sense for each therapist to have kind of their own landing page when we think about structure as well, kind of like topical structures of specialties and, header structures, things of that nature that kind of just lends more authority to the therapists themselves. I think that can really help with potential ranking when we look at that. And I know this started with technical SEO, JavaScript, and Elementor, but my point is that all of the content is there preloaded because of Elementor. It can actually be a negative detriment if it's not functioning properly across that site. And I think that along with that, the structured data itself isn't pointing in this one individual page that, these are all people who work here, where if they were separate pages that were talking about each individual therapist and the owner, you could wrap individual structured datas around those that lend more additional information on top of each individual landing page having its own structured HTML that gives more information to.
Mm-hmm. I'd also say, one last thing from my perspective is maybe, adding in, navigation by symptoms, because typically, from my research, that's typically where people will start. They have symptom related content on the site, but
so we can go to the condition page to kind of reference this because they have conditions.
Yeah. But I think that could be a little bit more obvious though. Like, maybe having a primary header just for the condition. So you could, when you mouse over it, it opens that up, a little bit more, quickly. So, that's a possibility, for, additional.
I like that from the user standpoint a lot. That like they're coming because they're dealing with something. Can you help them find out how you fix that?
Yeah, that would be another recommendation that I would make, honestly, is to have conditions just like the services page. Like I like to structure things like the hub and spoke model. And that way each of these pages, like pelvic pain gets its own page. And this way users who are like asking AI or just Googling or whatever, and they're like, I have bladder dysfunction, like where can I go? And that's like a super high intent, someone who is ready to, convert basically.
And it looks like they started down that path. I think these are clickable, but it takes you right back down to the bottom. So not a specific page, just a shortcut, I guess, right?
So with that too, there's like opportunity if it was kind of more of a focus on a per condition basis. They have a lot of blog content, right? And I think looking at it, some is performing better than others. That they've definitely started doing a bit more research, it seems, lately. But there's content that kind of matches levels of conditions here, where that's another opportunity to provide the user more resources to read.
Some internal linking opportunity.
Exactly. Maybe it's like a carousel of resources, things of that nature that point the user back into other areas.
Yeah, like all related to the exact topic that the page they're on. I think that's a really good idea. They could just like categorize them or tag them. It wouldn't be too difficult.
I like that. Related blogs to the specific section, so you can see where else you might find value from the site itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Adam, I'll let you lead off on this one here. I want you to tell us, where were some of the biggest SEO opportunities that you saw on this site? Where do you feel like there were some easy actions that could be taken that could help this company rank higher locally?
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think really the biggest miss is geotagging. They could do a lot more with geotagging. For example, I looked up the relative search volume for Riverstown, that they're referencing, and there really isn't any. So they're in Westchester County. There's a lot more volume, for pelvic floor therapy Westchester. So leaning into that, they've also seen a decline in page one rankings, over the last 2 years. So I think really, bolstering the geotagging that they're doing throughout the site, and making sure that those geotags, like Riverstown's, for example, that it has search volume behind it. It's a little off-site, but I also did some scans of their Google Business Profile. And I think that could also, boost, their exposure there as well.
What specifically, and Zach and Morgan, feel free to jump in. What specifically about their Google Business Profile was an opportunity to you?
Posting. So they haven't done it at all since, you said October earlier. Add some services. Google Business offers so many more robust options to kind of fill this profile out now. Just do them all.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, that there's some just posting that's missing there, right? If they're publishing content on their site, it's an easy, quick transition to, post similar content, or, schedule that out in a way that the postings also show up in that. I think there's a level of merit to saying, like, if you see a business listing posting content more regularly, that they're really on top of making sure that their digital presence is there. Maybe they're more trustworthy because of it. So not only maybe at a usability standpoint, a conversion standpoint, something that I might look at to say, is this business actually, active? Are they actively doing things that are trustworthy in a way that I would want to engage with them?
Yeah, and they have good reviews, so like they've got good, good reviews and regular, volume, coming in there. But more filling out, from top to bottom, the GBP, because that's where a lot of local search, ends up, is in that section, right? So again, making sure that the volume matches, what you're optimizing for. So if more people, almost no one searches for Riverstown and Derry. I'm messing up the town name, but their town name is kind of similar. They're the only person or company in that town.
Dobbs Ferry,
thank you. So they're dominating that, but there's a lot of service providers around them, that do PT and pelvic floor. So the near me is limited, but the Westchester, I think, could be wide open for them.
I want to back up to something, or Zach, go ahead.
I did have one point, and the Google reviews sparked the idea here too, is that I think, especially with a website like this, reviews are incredibly important. They are a level of authority to say this is a great place to go and trust, right? And one thing I notice about foundationspt.com is that they don't list the reviews anywhere on their website directly, or a way to see those reviews via like Google reviews. So maybe it's both, right? Maybe it's listing a few of your top level reviews and linking to your Google business page profile so that you can read more reviews. And I think that can also help with conversion to get even more reviews than you currently have, which is just more votes of confidence for Google to have you show up more often locally.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to dive into something that I'm finding is that you're not so unique as a local service company. There could be, 10,000 different physical therapy places within a certain number of miles from you. And so your services, your like symptom pages and stuff like that, a lot of that, it is probably just going to feel like duplicate content to Google because it's pretty much everywhere. You're not going to do anything unique. I want to touch on why those reviews are so valuable for a local company, and not just on your Google business profile, but on your website. Tell me how that affects the user experience for someone that doesn't have it versus someone that does, and what your perspective is on that.
Yeah, I think it's that fourth pillar. So I talked about make sure they know where they are. Do you offer can you help them, make it easy to contact, and then trust, right? So having your reviews on your website is a form of social proof. And there's tons and tons of research that would suggest that people trust independent reviews almost as much as they do family and friends. So by having the fact that they have 66 5-star reviews is phenomenal. So adding that to their website is going to help to differentiate them possibly, but also add that social proof that yes, they're working with a company that is trusted. Oh, and by the way, Google doesn't want to serve up companies that have poor reviews either, right? So it's a SEO plus, but it's also a huge usability strength.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it shows trust, and even you could take it a step further and sure have a slider on the homepage, but then you can add them to the services pages if they're relevant. To if you're somehow able to pull in specific reviews. But also something that we've been kind of experimenting with on the blogs is if there's a specific, let's say you're writing about endometriosis and you have someone who happened to say in their review, this is their care. This is probably a poor example because people don't want to spread their healthcare, but for everyone else out there, you can put, as you're talking about this in the blog, you have this review, just showcase it. So it's kind of again, the social proof, like Adam said, or the proof of life that everyone's talking about. And yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I think in a world where anybody can spin up a website with AI in a matter of 2 prompts, that showing that you are a real trustworthy company through real human user experiences is the biggest bonus and biggest plus you can have for a website currently.
I love that we got there, because that's where I was hoping that whole funnel kind of came to, is we can create a website and it'll fabricate reviews. It'll fabricate stories. And now we're in a stage where it's you really don't know what you can trust on a site. And it feels like those social proofs are way more powerful than ever, and not just needed for the user experience, but also for the search engines that aren't wanting to produce false information on a website that's about healthcare, or maybe not about healthcare, depending on the schema that they put in place, right?
And everybody may or may not know, but I think for the average business owner, what's the hurt? What would it hurt if I put a fake review? You can get huge, $10,000 fines from the government, for fraudulent reviews. So that's an area that there's not a lot of education around.
I don't know if I've never posted a fake review, so maybe I've just never been in that type of situation where I'd need to hear that. But that's really fascinating to me. I'm glad that there's some consequence to it, but I do think that AI is going to empower a lot of people that have no idea that that's a rule to build a bunch of fake reviews. I've had to scold my AI quite a few times about writing fake reviews. I'm like, where the heck did you come up with this information? It's yeah, right. I made it up. Don't do that. So I want to, from you guys too, we've talked about some of the holes. I want to ask maybe where are the recommendations now? This company wants to do better. And they've worked with a few agencies, and it still feels like there's opportunities to fix those. I do think the GBP posts are pretty low hanging fruit, and it seems like it's one of the top priorities for anyone that does local SEO, and they're not doing that currently. So I'd say we take that one off the table for you now. We've already discussed that. Where are the final opportunities that you would say, even with a limited budget, these are the things that you could do next to fix it? So I'll discuss we'll kind of review what we've talked about so far. We talked about schema. We talked about the hub and spoke aspect of like service pages, condition pages, and the structure of that content. And we've talked about their local business profile from the review standpoint and from Google Business Posts. And I think optimizing it as well as like the services and things there as well. Are there any low hanging fruit or any more opportunities that you guys will want to share with this client?
Yeah. I think that their blogs could use a refreshing with actual headers. And also, like, those are not bad topics, but they need to be longer. We need H2s, H3s, you know, it's some LLM and human friendly blog posts. With that, add an author. Right now, it does say that the owner is the author, but it just says her name or their name and no credentials behind it. It doesn't really show like they're this doctor and expert in this field, which will help with their EEAT. And, you know, that's, I think, the lowest hanging fruit and probably the easiest budget wise thing they could do.
I was going to actually say something very similar where EEAT was probably suffering is that there's no authorship level information to the content, which likely isn't hurting the actual services area of the business itself. It's more like that organic conversion with people researching if they're going to go in one way or another with their treatments and things of that nature. But, you know, having that authorship is really going to just help overall within that content. The other thing too is internally linking where it makes sense. I went through, I think, 10 or 15 different posts where there are no internal links within any of the content. And there was plenty of opportunity for internal links to be added within that content. And then to echo what Morgan was saying, kind of, you know, that LLM level mentality level thinking. We live in a TikTok now AI generation where everybody wants quick, easy, digestible information. So long, lengthy content, I think there is a happy middle ground where it's like, I think the content does need to be longer, but that doesn't mean write a 6,000 page book about, you know, what pelvic pain is. It's more about, you know, what are the questions that a user would want answered about pelvic pain? Are we serving that content with the user's intention first and not just to try to manipulate keyword ranking? I think is the big push that I would go with there. And to Morgan's point, I think that the blogs, there's a bit of overhauling that needs to be reviewed and analyzed there to say what's working, what isn't, and what can we improve on as a whole here if we're going to drive traffic organically to the content.
Yeah, those are all great points. You know, I'd say, you know, a couple of things that are, you know, on the lower, you know, budget side is, you know, also looking at, you know, citations and you know, directories. I know that there's, you know, debate about, you know, the value of those or how much, you know, it's an impact, but certainly low cost. I would also,
I think you hit one important one, that they're actually missing some medical citations that add EEAT. They're just missing. They're just not filled out correctly. Yeah.
Right. You know, in their space also, I would, you know, I haven't done a accessibility scan, you know, but I would, that would probably be another thing that I would want to look at, you know, from their standpoint, you know, website accessibility, and there's some easy fixes that don't require, you know, hand coding, you know, for that. And then I'm going to go back to the geotagging, you know, just going through the site, you know, applying the better preferred geotag, you know, locations in your page titles, you know, H1s, 2s, you know, so on and so forth. Not keyword stuffing by any means, you know, but, you know, looping them in naturally. You know, those are some fairly low-hanging fruit things.
I've heard that as a best practice, even in the GBP posts. It's just signals to tell them where you work, not necessarily trying to influence it the wrong way.
Right.
I actually am going to do something. I wasn't sure how I wanted to approach this, but I wish I could have given you like numbers or like a whiteboard and had you guys like write your score. But I'm just going to ask you guys, tell me on a scale of like 1 to 10 here, 10 being this customer is getting really good SEO and 1 being they're paying for bad SEO. What's the state of their website today? 1 through 10, how are they doing? And I'll just say that the question is SEO you're paying for it, right? So are they paying to get good SEO, or do you feel like this is maybe one of those opportunities that you wish that you could have corrected for them?
I hate to say it depends on how much they're paying,
It does. Take that out of mind and just say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is this website's SEO?
I gave the overall score, a B. I have to translate that into a 1 to 10. Maybe that's but that's an 8.
It's out of 100. I think that's like an 84, right? Like,
yeah, right. I would say there are some areas where it's scores lower and some that score higher. It's concerning to me that they just have had continued declining drops in page 1 rankings over the last 2 years. So if they're paying someone for blogging, for example, they're not exactly helping repopulate that, or maybe they are, in the Search Console data would show that, but without deeper analysis. I'd say I would strongly evaluate it.
I would say somewhere in the range, if I had to give it a out of 10, is maybe a 6.5 to 7 out of 10, and that is only in the sense that a lot of WordPress SEO can be handled plug and play with Yoast, but where there's like overlapping conflicts, the content doesn't seem like truly cared for in the sense of internal linking, header structures, things of that nature. I think that the technical SEO score, and I did like a quick crawl with our crawling solution, was actually quite well. It was in the 80s, which was great on the technical side. The big kind of red flags there were the structured data issues that we were flagging there, which, granted, in the grand scheme of technical SEO, are minor in the technical side, but have impacts on the actual ranking and like showing up in other areas. So I want to lower that down to maybe like a 6.5 out of 7, because some of that stuff is actually just super low hanging fruit, where adding an internal link isn't a ton of effort, and creating header structures and doing a little research around the content to create that and make that happen is not a ton of effort there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys at like maybe a 6.5, just because if there is an SEO on board doing these things, like there should be more done. And I don't, like I just said, we don't know their budget or how many hours or however they do their projects, but it does seem like interlinks could be done. GMB posts take 2 seconds. You can add an author. There's just some things that I feel like have been overlooked.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, maybe it's like we're only getting a few hours of SEO a month, and we're fulfilling what is highest of importance, and it's not a full suite of 20-40 hours a month of SEO that we're currently paying for. So totally budget depending, 100%.
Yeah.
But without you knowing how much they're currently spending, I'll ask this then: what do you expect that they are spending on a monthly basis for the SEO level that they're getting? I know you're not seeing the fulfillment packages, but just based on the state of the website, knowing that they've paid for SEO for at least a year, right? They've had a vendor in place for at least a year. If it's too tough to guess it, we can let you guys pass on this question.
I've seen everything, throughout the whole spectrum. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was $300 a month. It wouldn't surprise me if it was $1,000 a month. Although if they're paying $1,000 a month, they're not getting the value that they should be getting. I'll put somewhere in the middle of $800 a month. $500 to $800 a month.
It feels like a Price is Right moment too. Like if you're over the top, you lose. But
I got to pick one. Right?
Zach and Morgan, do you care to take a swing at where you think they are?
Where physical therapy and this type of website is definitely not my area of expertise or where we operate. I'm going to pass and say I'm not sure what the pricing should be.
Okay. I think that's fine. If you don't want to do it, that's fine.
Yeah, hey, I'm not sure either.
Morgan, you seem hesitant. I don't want to put the pressure on you. I won't even make you say no. It's okay. Adam, thank you for playing the game. You are officially the winner of the Price is Right.
Good job, Adam.
As I do want to thank you. The client was interested in hearing your thoughts on their current situation. They seemed frustrated with the support that they've gotten so far. When we asked for a review of the work that the other agency was doing on a monthly basis, I think it is nearly 2 weeks and they haven't given her an answer yet. So I think she's just concerned with the support that they're getting and wanted to get an evaluation done. So thank you for being part of this. This is the first episode of SEO You're Paying For It. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.